E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Ginwa Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Messages of Inspirational Stories. So today we have our marketing director with us, Mr. Emerson Brantley. We are so excited you're here, Emerson. Thank you. And I gave Jim the day off.
Wow.
I know. I thought that was dang nice of me.
It is. It is.
So last week
we don't want him to get used to it, though, right?
I know. He'll get lazy if we do that. So I just give him a little time off here and there. You know, last week we were talking about change your mental vision, and we are continuing it this week because there's been a lot of interest in it. And I'm excited because, you know, this is something that sometimes I think, Emerson, we have a tendency as, you know, humans to think when things are really going really wrong in our life, that's when we need to always change our vision, which is true. But in the truth and the reality is we need to always be checking ourselves and getting our mental vision in a clear, forward-thinking space, you know? So, I mean, you can have a week go where everything's great, and then boom, 8th day, it all breaks loose. Everything hits the fan at one time. But I think that's something that we don't talk about enough. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing. We become locked into different things in our life, or different patterns. And habits in our life, and you know, it really is. The course correction. Really, it's almost constant. You know, I like to use the example of an airplane. When a plane is on, say, autopilot or manual pilot, but on autopilot, 99.9% of the time, it's flying in the wrong direction because it is constantly having to course adjust.
Right.
As the wind is blowing it, you know, as temperatures are changing the metal, you know, it's adjusting for different patterns and in the clouds. And so 99% of the time, it's not on a beeline. They're constantly course correcting. And another example I like to use, my wife and I sailed for many years. We had a sailboat. And in a sailboat, you're constantly having to trim and adjust the sails because you're working with the wind.
Right.
And you're tacking and you're moving and you're having to adjust and work with the wind and with the currents and the things like that.
Not against it.
Yeah, you don't just start out like with a power boat, you know, throw the throttle down and aim for the point over on the other side of the river or the lake.
Right.
So in our life, we really have to be, well, we used to have a saying, I shared this with Jim the other day, flexible is way too rigid.
I love it. That's awesome.
So we have to learn to be flexible and be willing to adapt. It's all about adapting and tweaking and course correction.
Right. And being conscious of being able to do so and do so with whatever's going on in your life, with giving yourself grace.
Oh, yeah.
That is a big one for me.
Yeah.
Give
Easy
yourself
on yourself.
Grace. Right. Give yourself grace. That's huge. So, you know,
plenty of people who'll be more than happy to beat up on us if we let them.
Right. So we don't
need to beat up on ourselves.
Exactly. I love it. So as you guys might have noticed, Emerson and I have have a tendency, whether we're in a meeting or not, of us having the same thought and saying the same words often at the same time. So if it sounds like we're doing it in unison, we are, but it is by accident. So I love this chapter because this is, we're talking about changing our mental vision and success through a positive mental attitude. And this is about clearing the cobwebs from your thinking, which is right segueing into what we just talked about. So how orderly are you in your thought processes? How straight is your thinking? How clean are your thoughts? There are certain mental cobwebs that clutter up the thinking of almost everyone, even the most brilliant minds. Negative feelings, emotions, passions, habits, beliefs, and prejudices. Our thoughts become entangled in these webs. That's a pretty heavy little statement right there, isn't it?
It is.
And very true. And very true. I talk about energy a lot, right? Because I deal in that. And your energy can flow wherever you take it, whether it's a negative energy or it's a positive energy. But it will flow in whichever pattern you choose. Now, I'm going to say that again, that you choose to take it, right? Because we all have a choice and nobody can take that choice away from us.
And your brain doesn't know the difference.
No.
Your brain doesn't know the difference between negative and positive. It doesn't know the difference between truth and lie.
Right.
It doesn't know the difference between any of the things that we're talking about here. So if you tell your brain, if you tell yourself, that you can never do things, that you're failing, that everything I try seems to fall apart, you're telling your brain something. The brain just accepts that as fact.
Right. Exactly.
And likewise, the brain accepts, I can do things. Yes. I can figure this out. I'm capable. I'm more than capable. I'm an overcomer. I can achieve. I can do this. The brain doesn't know any different, and it believes that. And one of the great quotes from Clem Stone was, whatever the mind can believe,
the body can achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and that's scriptural. Mm-hmm. The people perish for our lack of.
I love that.
Vision.
Right.
It's real. It's not. One of the things Jim and I were talking about the other day was, this isn't about just, thinking, being a Pollyanna, a little chirpy, everything's wonderful, rose-colored glasses.
Right.
It's not about pretending that everything's wonderful when it's going to hell in a handbasket.
Right.
Right. But it's about recognizing that in every adversity is the seed of a greater benefit. We have to be willing to free our mind to receive that and think and look, and it'll show up. It shows up.
I have heard for years, and Emerson, I know you have too. Well, if you want to be successful and you're starting out, fake it until you make it. That sticks for me. That sticks in my craw.
Yeah.
Because that to me is inauthentic. I would rather be honest with someone if I'm starting a new business and say, geez, I'm in a new business and I'm really excited about it. And I am just getting started. I have more respect for myself in doing that, or anyone else coming to me and saying that too.
And the fakeness of some of the teaching that's out there over the years since Napoleon Hill and Clement Stone were first revealing these things, sharing these things. Fake it till you make it.
Right.
what they're doing is they're taking something. Clement Stone used to say, and as many of the viewers know, I worked for Clement Stone. I
Right.
was in combined insurance company, so I got to see it from the inside out as well, as to how after 30 or 40 years, this can become a culture within an entire organization.
Right.
But one of the things that he would say is to be enthusiastic, act enthusiastic. Now, when you take that and twist that around and say, oh, fake it till you make it, that's not what he was saying.
Right.
He was saying, let your mind and your body be in that state of enthusiasm.
Right.
And what happens is it creates a shift. It creates a shift.
Right. And it's to me, it's always reflected into the windows of the soul, which are your eyes, right? So when you're excited about something, somebody's eyes get big and they dance and you can see it, and you can see how much they love talking about it. Just like if, so if you're with somebody and they're like, oh, I mean, this is the best thing I have ever seen. I mean, it's really great, right? It's just not there. It doesn't connect.
Yeah.
It doesn't connect. And so, there's the changing your mental vision happens in many ways. But I want to go on real quick here because I know you've got some incredible insight on this. And it's so interesting to me. It says sometimes, or some persons give up on and experience the mental conflicts of a living hell. Others learn how to tap and use the powers of the subconscious through the conscious mind. They are victorious. And success through a positive mental attitude teaches you how to tap and use these powers. So, it's saying that we get caught up in the invisible spider web, right? That we put in our head. So if you struggle, and you've ever seen a bug in a spider web, the more they struggle, the more they entangle themselves. Exactly. And that's what he's saying. That's what we do.
And he's right. What's amazing to me is as we've been revisiting some of this, is how, without any of the scientific knowledge that we have today about the brain,
right,
how spot on these things were.
Oh, yeah.
And brain science is, because in the last 20 or 30 years, it's just gone astronomically leaps and bounds. One of the things that they have proven it's been referred to as the greatest discovery in our lifetime. And there are a lot of things that probably have been labeled that, but anyway, it's brain elasticity.
Yes.
Now, that's a scientific principle. I'm not talking about PMA and positive mental attitude and thinking and the books we're talking about here. I'm talking about science has found that the brain is elastic. It is able to stretch. It's able to create entirely new streams of neurons and channels and patterns in it. And that's what they're saying in this.
Right.
That's what they're saying in this. It's the things that we have focused on and everything around us in our life. Let's step back just a second. There's nothing basically in our world around us, in our own life, or in anyone's life, in the entire world, other than, mountains and trees and things like that. But there's nothing in our physical world of things that didn't start as a thought.
Right.
And what you had were these little synapses going back and forth in somebody's brain. And they pictured a wheel, or they pictured a chair, or they pictured a house when they were living in a cave and nobody had ever seen a house. So these are the things that in the power of our brain is completely elastic. We can stretch it. We can grow it. We can create entirely new pathways, no matter what our life has been like up till now.
Right.
No matter what has happened to us, no matter what may happen to us today or tomorrow, we have the ability to create entirely new neural pathways and to use the power of our brain to find a path over, under, around, or through, or create something entirely new that nobody has ever seen before.
Right. And, I want to correlate this in a way. One of my children is dyslexic. And at the age of 4, I kept saying, this child is dyslexic. This child is dyslexic. And the teacher at the time said, nah, just some speech issues. So at 6, I had tests done. Boom. Let's fast forward. Yep, dyslexic. And the interesting thing for me, as I was an older mom, was...
Will be one day anyway.
I'm there. But it was interesting because although simple words in the beginning, there was no comprehension, couldn't read them, couldn't write them. Mm-hmm. Never letting my child know that they had dyslexia. Found out when my child was around 13, madder than a wet hen. And why didn't you tell me, blah, blah, blah. And I said, because I didn't want you to feel sorry for yourself. I didn't want you to use dyslexia as an excuse. Look at you now. 13, you're reading at a high school senior level and comprehending. But when you were 6 years old, you couldn't even read the basic words of cat, dog, the, on, at. So for me, I see some of that in a weird way, because although like my brain, for not being a scientist or anything, is pretty, well, normal. But, I do things this way, and that's how I get there. And with my child who's dyslexic and may not be able to see or spell a word in the right way,
right.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Idyllic memory. And instead of I would take this path, my child goes zoop in there. And I believe that because of that dyslexia, it's opened up pathways in the brain that I will never have.
It's like autism.
Right.
And Asperger's and
Yes.
People who that's something that they're dealing with. And yet I have over the years worked with numerous people who were on different parts of the spectrum. And the key in it is you find those gifts and talents and things that they just excel at.
Yes.
And then let them excel at it, because
right.
It's just like people who have lost their vision or who don't or who do not have vision. Their sense of hearing is much higher developed.
Right.
Right. And likewise, people who've lost their hearing or who never were able to hear, they pick up on things really fast.
Right.
Body language and movement and stuff that we've studied and tried to learn, but they're picking up on it, Right. Those senses are heightened. Speed. They're heightened.
Right.
And so it's not, when we're talking about this, it's part of it is exactly what you said. It's making excuses. Well, my folks never had any money, so I'll probably never have any money. And my family pretty much has always been, worked at this mill and now, like I was talking with Jim the other day about Rudy Rudiger and the great film Rudy, but his whole family worked at the mill.
Yep, that's a great movie.
Oh, isn't it? Everybody should go down and stream it if you haven't ever seen it. But but he had this vision, and he said, no, that's not what my life is going to be.
Right.
And so there's the side of it where we can use the stinking thinking or whatever. We can use it as our crutch, as our excuse through life, right? There's also the sense of when we change the language that we're using, our brain hears it. It doesn't know it's not right. And it begins to believe and to see things in a different way.
Right.
The actual synapses in our brain reroute themselves, and your brain starts working subconsciously and finds a way. It finds a path. It figures it out. It comes up 4 a.m, comes up with things that, holy Toledo, where did that thought even come from?
Right. I always like to say, you can get bitter or you can get better.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Right. And I choose not to stay in bitter. Period. Now, that's not saying that, I'm super happy all the time. There's days we're all down or we don't feel good or whatever. But the difference is I don't live there.
Yeah.
Right? I may have to rest there for a moment, but I don't live there. And that is by choice.
Yeah.
Right? That's by choice. So I love that.
It's the choice factor.
Yes.
That a lot of times people don't get.
Absolutely.
And I'll share a story I haven't ever shared, except one-on-one with very few people. A number of years ago, in the same year, I had 5 significant, what's the word I want to use here? I won't use the word I usually do. Taking advantage of 6-figure disappointments. We'll call it disappointments, okay? I had 5 of those in the same year. And incidentally, in each one of the cases, we delivered, my company went through direct. We delivered over and above what had been committed.
Right.
So I went into a funk. I went into a tailspin. And I had 2 clients who insisted they didn't care if I didn't call them, if I didn't do anything, they wanted to keep working with me. So I finally said, okay, but don't expect phone calls and everything else. Because I just didn't even care.
Right.
And I set about digging up a side yard, about 60 feet by 15 feet, dug it about 3 feet deep, built a planter in it, planted bamboo, pulled up 300 pavers, relayed 300, brought in sand, relayed. I mean, I was out at 5 a.m. doing this. Same time, I started going to a gym for the very first time, started working out. But I was in a funk this whole time. And I said something to my wife at one point here about 2 or 3 years ago. I said, the bamboo saved my life.
Right.
Well, the truth is, giving my brain the chance to
decompress,
to adjust, to clear itself, to clear those cobwebs out. And I learned things like the rhythm of a pickaxe and the rhythm of a shovel, and getting
that's one of my favorite tools.
Well, we've heard, everybody here in some shape or form has seen some movie or something where people working on the railroad or working in a field and go, oh, there's a rhythm that you get into with it, and it's mindless. It is completely clearing. And here's what happened. I knew enough already at that point about brain science, and because I'd had two clients that were major players in the brain science field, and I knew enough about it to know that the day that I decided to stop all that is the day that my life would get back on track. Right? Yep. Sure enough, I said, okay, I'm done. That's enough. Literally, within 3 days, I had landed a 5-figure client.
Right.
After spending months in this funk.
Right.
And the thing is, it's a decision. It's exactly what you said. We make that decision as to how, if we want to be if we want to be somebody who's positive, who sees that those opportunities, who sees the good in people, who finds the ways that make things work, who finds solutions, are the
Right.
person who's always finding the problems and the issues and the challenges, and everything is holding them down, and resentful and angry and sad and depressed and all those things. It's a decision, and our brain
Right.
is waiting. Your brain is waiting for you to say, enough is enough.
Hmm.
This isn't how I want to. Hey, I'm going to write my life in this book, and all of that stuff, those chapters, I don't need those. I'm going to write my life the way I would like it to be.
Right.
And I'm not going to use these things. I'm not going to use them as crutch or look for the negative. I'm going to find some way to find that seed that he talks about in any adversity is the seed of a greater or equal benefit. A greater or equal benefit. Okay, now I'm gonna go just a little bit scriptural here. Okay, we're not a religious show, but in the scriptures, there's the talk about having the faith of a mustard seed, and you can say to a mountain, "Move," and move. It's the same concept, and that's why I'm sharing that aspect. It's a decision. It's exactly what you said, Donna. It's a decision that we make. And each decision that we make in our life influences the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. I'm going to say one more thing. And this is a rider downer for everybody who's listening, because I was introduced to this concept a number of years ago, and it has never, I don't think a day has gone by where I haven't thought about it. It will probably be one of the last things on my lips on my last day. I want you to really consider this, because it's about everything in our life. We've all heard, you know, if it is to be, it's up to me, and truisms and things like that.
Right.
This isn't one of those. This isn't one of those. Everything in my life is the result of decisions that I've made.
Accountability, responsibility.
It's true accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And my, here it is. My intentions and my results are always the same.
Mm-hmm.
People say, well, I didn't intend for this or that. And you know what? That there is truth in that. But the real truth, the root truth is every decision we make leads to another and another and another and another and another. So we've made decisions. Nobody had a gun to our head. We made decisions that led to this moment, that led to this circumstance, that led to this eventuality, and we need to own it.
Mm-hmm.
That's accountability to ourselves, and we need to be accountable to ourselves.
Absolutely.
So everything in our life is the result of those decisions. So my intention, and here's why intention is important. Like I said, nobody has a gun to your head. You're not going to do something if you don't feel it's the right thing to do. So you've made decision after decision after decision, hundreds, thousands of decisions in your life. Each one of those decisions, there's a little ripple effect that goes out from it, right? And it leads to other decisions that have to be made, other paths, and you leave a job, or you find a job, or you start a relationship, or you break up a relationship, whatever. My intentions each step along the way have resulted in the results in my life right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the core of what
Right.
they're talking about here.
Absolutely. Accountability, owning your own crap,
Mm-hmm.
good or bad, is key. And, Emerson, I know, you've had a few health issues. I have too.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because after my last brain surgery, and I couldn't talk well for almost 2 years, I was really frustrated, right? I was so frustrated. And I finally, at some point, just said, and it was very subconscious. I just said, okay, I'm tired. Just whatever. Just whatever. Because it was always at the forefront, right? I was always, damn it, why can't I say those words? What is, I was literally getting caught up in my own cobwebs, right? And I was beating myself up. So obviously, I can talk fine now. But the interesting thing is, as I look back at that time in my life, and the lessons I learned were huge, because I subconsciously stepped back and gave myself grace. It was out of my control. So, okay, I love one of my favorite sayings is let go and let God. I love that. I love that saying. But the lessons it gave me was that it's okay. It's all okay. I'm not saying this is for everyone. I was on a lot of medications for my arthritis. I was on a lot of medication for my MS. And, I don't take any of those anymore.
Wow.
And that was, for me, that was the right choice. That was huge. I made a decision and I owned it. Okay. I chose a different path for me. That's not saying that maybe in the future I won't have to have something, but right now, for many years, I've been fine. My point with this is you have to be at peace with whatever it is you choose.
Yes.
Right? Because if you're not at peace with it, it's going to really screw up your mental vision, right? And it's going to change it in whichever direction you look at that.
It's very true.
Right?
It's very true. It's and I my experience has been different than yours, but
right.
You know this, I don't mind sharing it. I had a traumatic brain injury and major brain infection crossed the blood-brain barrier, and they weren't real hopeful. When I came out from all of that, I had surgery as well. When I came out from all of that and out of rehab, the doctor told me, he said, Mr. Ranley, most of my patients who have your level of brain injury don't walk out.
Right.
I said, frankly, Doc, I didn't know that. I just thought all these people were being way over the top nice to me, and stop all the motivational stuff. I can do squats, okay, right? and I had no clue.
Right.
And he said, and I'm sharing this this isn't self-aggrandizing for me, okay?
Right. It's not about when we share something like that, we're not saying it, look at me, look at us. It is because of it can help somebody else in what we have learned along the way.
Now, this neurosurgeon, after I joked with him and said, well, at least I have one brain cell left, he said, no, Mr. Brantley, I can tell you after over 30 years in neurosurgery, you have at least two, because you have to have two to have a synapse go back. Okay? So there was some humor there.
Right.
But then he got serious and he said, Mr. Brantley, your intellect and your outlook, that's what brought you through. I have patients who have less brain injury than you have, who never, ever, ever regain anywhere close to what you've regained.
Right. And
he wasn't saying that in a pablum, stroking me kind of a way.
Right.
He was very serious about it. And here's the thing, during all of that time, I was me. I was introducing people, I was talking, I was looking, I was positive, and I was who I am, because that is who I am.
Right.
But the thing is, that's a choice. You have pain you deal with. You have challenges that you deal with. you have maybe financial things or job related, or maybe you're in a position where you're constantly being harassed, or there's all sorts of stories that we hear, and it doesn't diminish your story.
No.
It doesn't diminish your life. To rise above it and say, that's not the book of my life that I'm going to write. I'm going to write this book.
Exactly. You know, I for years, my father, God rest his soul, he was a psychologist.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, and very, very brilliant man. And he used to get so upset because, you know, from the time I was 9 on, I was diagnosed with arthritis when I was like 16 or 17, something like that. And it, you know, it's not been a nice one to carry with me, but it is what it is. And I have always believed, and when people, it's not that they mean, they don't mean well, but when I'm talking with somebody and it comes up and I say, yes, I understand. You know, my big joke is I have arthritis and it's everywhere, but probably 2 joints. I just don't know which one they are yet. And then I'll, you know, talk about my MS and that I've had 3 brain surgeries. So my brain surgery and yours were from 2 different things.
Absolutely. And no comparison, no competition in
right.
the stuff you went through.
Yeah, we were on 2
I went through. It's just
2 ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's 2 different ends of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're only using this in order to illustrate some of what we're sharing.
What we're talking about.
Today,
exactly. Yeah. So when people say, oh my gosh, Donna, I am so sorry. And my dad used to say that. And I got to be honest, it pissed me off because I don't like sympathy. Right. And I have said for more years than I can remember, since I was a young woman, I have what I have because somebody else isn't strong enough to carry it. And I firmly believe that. And that's my way I look at it. And because I have changed, you know, for so many years ago, I changed the way, the parameters of, you know, am I a victim or am I a warrior?
You reframed it.
Right. I reframed it. Yeah. And so because I do that, I promise you, it doesn't mean I don't have pain. It doesn't mean I don't go through some crap every day. No. I do. Absolutely. But I handle it so much better because of the way I choose to carry it. And that's me. You know, I feel that if you wallow in it, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to sink a little further. That's me.
Yep.
So
it's very true. You know, it's, you know, one of the things that, and of course, my background is marketing, working with small businesses all the way up to Fortune 100 companies and their marketing. And one of the truths in marketing is a truth in life. In fact, there are a lot of them. But there is no such thing as 100%.
Right.
And people would say to me, "You're going to be back. You're going to be back 100%. You did, you know, or you're going to, you know, you'll be back." And there are people in this country who are looking at the country, go, "Oh, I'll be glad when we're back to something." Whatever in their mind is how wonderful it was before, right. Whatever. The thing is, the Japanese have a wonderful concept. You and I have talked about this, and it's Kaizen. It's continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to reach 100%. You're never going to be perfect, at least not on this side of the right. of the divide. But what that means is, I will always be able to improve. And even incremental changes can create quantum leaps.
Big ripples.
And it's huge. And I used to have a mentor who would say that, that it's not massive change that creates massive growth. It's the little things that you do, the incremental things that you do in your life.
Right.
That's quantum growth. And the example that he would use, which I'll use real quickly here, we've all gone into a building or a place, a garage or something where there are flies on the windowsill. I think we talked about this on one of the shows, and the flies on the windowsill. Why are they there? Well, you go in and you hear one buzzing and trying to hit that window, and that fly will just keep hitting that window, just keep hitting that window. And the thing is, all that fly has to do is to just shift the direction a little bit and fly out an open door.
Right.
That is what a marginal shift or an incremental shift
Can
will
do.
do. Creates a quantum leap, and your brain functions at that level.
Right. Right. And so this is something that, just for those of you out there, that this is, part of this is from the book, but obviously big part of this is from Emerson and myself's heart, right? This is how we are. We had an absolute amazing time in Tomball, Texas.
Oh yeah.
Emerson and his beautiful wife Anne and myself and Jim and Gaia, my daughter, and we had a great time. We didn't get in each other's way. The house was super big, so that was awesome. We all had our own space, but I mean, we lived this because the way we all worked in the kitchen, the way somebody would do dishes, the way somebody would get something. We work in tandem because that is who we are.
It all flowed.
Exactly. And because it's a conscious decision.
It is a decision.
Right.
And it's all about a decision.
It is absolutely about the decision.
Everything that we have everything we need or everything we want, these things are a decision that we make.
Right.
When we pursue it, when we begin letting our brain subconsciously work on it, I can't tell you the number of times I've waken up at 4 a.m. and bam, there was exactly what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
My brain has been working on it.
Right.
Your brain is an amazing, amazing thing. And science, they still are trying to understand. They can't make a computer, at least not at this point. Artificial intelligence is amazing, but they can't make a computer. They can't create the artificial intelligence that grows and builds the way that their brain does, and that can reach into the recesses and pull things out that you haven't thought about in years, or maybe you never thought about it. And all of a sudden it's there, and the brain is doing this 24/7, 365. Think about it when you begin to harness the power of that in your life. And that's what is being talked about in the book here, which I encourage everybody to get. Any of these books by Napoleon Hill or W. Clement Stone. There are other good ones, but these are the bedrock books. And I don't care. Every professional motivational speaker trainer out there owes their allegiance to these books that we're covering right here.
Right.
You may call things differently and brand it differently and everything else, but it all goes back to these principles. They have held the test of time.
Right. And it's for me, by changing the paradigms and how and how I think and choose to feel about these little extra ride-alongs I have inside my body. Because I chose a different direction in which to look at it, I can tell you I see things for me so clear. I choose to live with good intentions in my integrity, only have that kind of people surround me. That's a big one for me,
It's been
right?
for all of us. Yeah.
Right? Well, but we've talked about this on the show. Some people think, oh, dude, it's my best cousin. We grew up together. Or it's my best friend, or it's my aunt, my uncle, my brother, my sister, my whatever. You know what? Sometimes you got to let the negativity go.
Yeah. Businesses are even worse, because the number of times businesses will say, hey, if their money's green and their plastic works, you know
Right.
what? Yeah. And Jim loves to tell the story of the first class that he was in with me, where I said, "What's the purpose of your marketing?"
Right.
And he was the first one up, and it's like, it's to get more traffic and get more customers. And it's
Repel.
like, wrong.
Repel them.
No. You don't have a filter. There's no filter there. It's to repel as many of the people as you can,
Right.
and only let the ones in that are the ideal prospects, ideal clients, ideal customers that you want, that love you, that listen to you, that do what you tell them to do, that send you endless referrals, that forgive us when we screw up. For goodness sake, we all
Right.
screw up.
It's sort of like when you have a really dirty window, right? And you start to clean it, and that first spot, it shines really bright in your face. That's the spot you work on.
That's it.
The rest of it doesn't matter.
That's it.
Right.
Yep.
So, it's so interesting. I can tell you that, and I've talked about it on the show. When I was much younger, I had a god awful temper. It was a doozy. It was a doozy. And you know what? It is such a precious gift to me to not live in that space anymore. Because again, this goes back to Emerson. I made a choice.
Mm-hmm.
One day I woke up and said, I am so damn tired. I am so damn tired of letting stuff get to me, of letting it worry me, of letting it rob me of my joy, of letting it rob me of my sleep, of letting. And I stopped letting it. And, this is the example of changing your mental vision. So whether you are in junior high, whether you're in high school, whether you're in college, whether, you're out there an adult in the working world, we all have a choice.
Yes.
And we all have a choice. And what I would recommend is write down what your mental cobwebs look like, right? What is caught? And I'm a real firm believer now. I'm old school in a T column, right? I love a T column. So put
Ben Franklin checklist.
Right. Put on one side, what qualities you love about yourself, and then on the other side, qualities that aren't so good. And those are where you can change your mental vision by identifying it. But here's the thing. You have to make a choice to identify it. You can't change it unless, and that decision to identify it. And when we identify it, that's when you step into your power.
Yes.
To change your mental vision.
And that's so important. That's so important, because when we let ourselves get lost in it, our emotions and anger and resentment and all of the stuff that ends up often coming along with the baggage that we're dragging along there.
Right.
What we're really doing is we're giving up our power to somebody else.
Absolutely.
We're giving up you're giving up your power when you lose it, when you get angry, when you get depressed or whatever.
You let somebody else win.
Yeah. And there are people out here watching, and I had who are going to ask this question, because I asked this question. I said, yeah, but what do you do when there's this person who just pushes your buttons, And you know what he said to me? He said, Emerson, whose buttons are being pushed? I said, they're pushing my buttons. Who owns those? Who owns these buttons?
Right.
I said, they're my buttons. They get under my skin. He said, where's the control for those buttons?
Right.
And he, gee, yeah. But you know
Slap
what?
me
It's
with a
true.
wet cloth.
Yeah, it's true. It's if we say he really pushes my buttons, well, they're my buttons.
Right.
They're my. That's so back to what you said. That's a decision. I'm giving up the power on my buttons to him or her.
Right.
No, they're my buttons. So guess what? I'm not
I
going to let
own.
you push my buttons.
Mhm. I mean,
You know,
it takes
it's a
so much.
decision.
People, if people called me a bad name, I just look at them and honestly, I'd be like, oh, okay, thank you, and walk off. I mean, it just doesn't affect me.
Have a great life.
Right. It
Yeah,
doesn't affect me
yeah.
because
Have a
I
great
go to
life.
bed making decisions that are the best for myself, my family, and
Mhm.
the people I work with. And it's the ripple effect, right? And so when I get rid of those thoughts, when I got rid of them, and we still continue to do it, we are
Oh,
creatures of habit. Again, we
mhm.
talked about this in the beginning of the show. We're creatures of habit. And if we're not careful, when life isn't just going perfect and we got a few more valleys and
Mhm.
hills instead of all the good stuff, um, we can get derailed. So we continue to do that. But by doing that, I go to bed and I sleep like a baby.
Yep. We all have situations where I'm assuming everybody in the world does. I don't think there's anybody that is so advanced they're completely transcendental to any of this, but maybe there are.
Right.
But we all have situations that that the way they come about, or something is said, or that all of a sudden it goes back to some tape that's in our head, and we tend to react in that moment instead of respond. And what do I mean by that? I have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to fire back a volley to them, and now we're shooting back and forth.
Right.
That just accelerates it. There are times in any relationship where you can find yourself in a spiral that's happening because we're human.
Right.
And I remember one time I said to my wife, Donna, I said, we were having a particularly intense discussion. And I said at a lull, and I said, I said, sometimes you really, really challenge me. And you know what she said? She said, I waited my whole life for a man to say that to me. Now, everybody is, probably was already thinking about what they would have said,
Right.
The thing is, that's where she's on the same page as what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've grown a lot from being married to my wife, and seeing how she relates, and neither one of us are perfect, but the thing is, we can grow, we can change, we have elasticity here, we have the ability if we use it. I'm going to give you a real quick example of something, and I've said this on another show, I think, but when we're having a discussion that has started to spiral, I have learned, excuse myself, I walk outside, and this is a principle, this is a brain principle.
Right.
I'm not counting to 10, okay? This is that kind of concept, but this is how it really works in your brain. I'll come up with some number, some equation, 5,647,233.76 times 43.4. It's like something I can never work out in my head.
Right.
Here's what happens. I'm going to use left brain, right brain, even though that's not the scientific part. Everybody knows. Okay, anyway. So over here is your right brain. Over here is your left brain. When the right brain is over here is the That's what we call the intuitive, the seat of the emotions, the seat of feelings. When that's really getting the energy, getting the juices in there, okay, it's pulling it from the other side, from the analytical side. So what I do when I do that equation is this. It's real simple. I'm focusing the energy on that analytical side, and I'm draining that energy out of that other side. And I can tell you this, inside of 2 minutes, I can go back in.
Right.
And the first thing that I do is apologize for my reaction. This isn't about right or wrong or this or that. None of that stuff matters. And a week from now, you won't even remember what happened and what it was about.
Right.
But I can take responsibility for the way I was reacting.
Exactly.
And at that moment, we're able to calm it all down.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife, God bless her, she is in tune enough to understand for herself as well.
Right.
Like I said, it doesn't make you perfect. It's not a Pollyanna thing. It's not everything is rose-colored glasses and beautiful and there's never any problems. The thing is, these are principles that help you address everything that you come up against.
Absolutely.
And to do it in a way that advances your life in the direction that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't keep bogging us down and controlling our life. You used the word empower a while ago. It empowers you when you're standing in these things and you're owning it. You're owning the failures, you're owning the successes, you're owning the bad, you're owning the good, you're owning it all.
Right.
You're saying, all of this is me.
Yep.
Here's the next chapter. Here's the book that I want the rest of my life to read like. And that is when the decision starts, the process is going.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that. I always say that the only thing that we take with us when we leave this world is the love we give and the love we have received. That's it. So with that in mind, that's kind of how I try and live my life. Well, Emerson, I know that you are really busy, and thank you for helping me give Jim a much deserved day off. And we are out of time, so I don't want to get kicked out. There's another show coming up. But folks, we will be back tomorrow with some more on how to change our mental vision, because this is so important each and every day. We want to close the show by saying thank you for everyone watching. And we hope that you are blessed in every area of your life and that you have much love and peace. We'll see you tomorrow. I was going to say next time, but tomorrow. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye, everybody.